Thank you all so much for being here. Dustin and I want to welcome you to today's podcast. We're really excited just to dive into our process and often the process of learning and growth for individuals and aspects of how to not only be aware of those deep inner desires that we have, those dreams maybe that we don't think that we'll ever be able to accomplish or step into in life, and how that's really so often a neat glimpse that we have into our future potential, our future options to be and to become. So we're really interested in really just fleshing that out today and discussing how that's shown up in our life, and some neat talks of just different tools that we've experienced along the way. I felt like there was a real shift in my awareness of what the psilocybin was doing, and the microdosing was new. I'd only done large doses before then.
Okay, yeah, big difference.
More heroic dose type stuff, or less, but significant. Nothing anywhere near a microdose. Nothing near that small. And then I was able to, I saw great benefit with that for the first 2 or 3 months I did it. And I feel like a lot of those benefits have held, even though I've tapered off extremely from what I was taking. I'm probably 1 in 4 days now or less.
Similar.
And I still feel like I've gained a lot of not gained, but I'm keeping and maintaining a whole lot of the presence and the consciousness of awareness of being in the present moment, and kind of that welcoming atmosphere to the present moment that psilocybin helped kind of create. So I'm really interested in this, what's going on with the NAD plus thing, because obviously it's a very different trajectory as far as like the chemical action of like what it's doing is very different than a ketamine
different.
or a psilocybin. Or you're not.
Yeah,
it's enhancing what your body naturally does, as far as active production. I think like those others two are huge in connecting us to our subconscious and like
spirit
deep at
source.
memory states, spirit source things that are also
moment.
always active. But different processing than just like helping our system run as it should be system. You know, it's like cleaner fuel or higher octane, or it's more what it sounds like. It sounds something that like your system just runs better.
Yeah, I mean, what the average 40-year-old human has lost 50% of their NAD plus levels, and so that's the Dr. Sinclair and Andrew Huberman were talking about this controversial episode, very listened to, but the thing I keep thinking about is when Dr. Sinclair said, I take a gram of NMN because it's the precursor to NAD+, and I take a gram of resveratrol, and I take like 0.75 grams of resveratrol right now, and then I'm doing the NAD+ patches, right? So I thought about what he said. He's like, when I don't take that, I feel like I'm my age. And I think he was 54 when it was recorded. He's like, when I do take it, I feel like I'm 20. And I keep thinking of that because in the last week, so my third patch, and my levels are still higher. So even in the off days this last week, I still feel like maybe I feel like I'm in my 20s, or I feel like I'm late 20s, right? Because I'm 39. Maybe I'm in my late 20s. And today that I'm doing it, I feel like I'm 20. It's just that clarity. I love what you said about ketamine as it correlates to psilocybin, as that correlates to what you're hearing me say about the NAD+, as that correlates to essentially that bubble or that present piece that like, to me, like, I think that is an interesting convergence, because you were like, I couldn't even articulate what was happening, but the ketamine helped that. I didn't really thought about that. One of my friends is reading a book on psychedelics right now, and she sent me a screenshot, and it was very fascinating because it describes how different ketamine is. And I've even had this conversation with people where sometimes I feel like it's wrong to even classify ketamine as a psychedelic because it's more of an analgesic, it's more of a dissociative. It's very different, even structurally it's so different, right? You were going to say something?
No, I was just, yeah, it shows up in the body. The experience of it is so different.
Yeah, yeah.
But there are huge ties in with how it's linking with our subconscious and linking with that like mystical part of, I don't have a better word for that, like this, that spirit,
I think it's a good word.
Mystical piece of us.
Yeah.
That feels congruent with the hallucinogenic but otherwise it is so wildly different.
Yeah. And I think that like that term disassociation, I was at a pharmaceutical dinner and it was a really weird rapport bending conversation, and the whole group of doctors and nurses and the people presenting at Johnson & Johnson, it was really interesting because that word has different meanings. Sure. Very different meanings. Like there's, I think, a healthy level of disassociation on more of a spiritual level, which ketamine does.
Yeah.
And then there's a clinical very negative where CPT codes and diagnosis codes are applied to people that like unhealthily disassociate, whether it's multiple personality disorder or all that stuff. And that's like something traumatic happened where the unconscious just fractured because it needed to like survive. What we're talking about is a very healthy, very peaceful, mystical, spiritual, ego disassociation, where to me, when I've done ketamine, I am operating as, and I even have a name for me, as a soul, as a spirit. And that is like where I've actually literally, this is not figurative, been out of my body as a soul looking at my human body vessel, talking about my ego in the third person in a session. And it's really interesting. And so I think that is, you bring up good points, because for me, when I've done macro or micro psilocybin, wildly different. And I've never had that ketamine offers. I've had beautiful experiences and horrific experiences on a macro psilocybin. And I like that because I think it like, to me, other psychedelics, ayahuasca, it's like a bomb goes off. And it's just like on a macro dose, on a hero dose. It's like terrifying, extremely cathartic. It's a whole kaleidoscope of just wild, beautiful, scary stuff that you're just unconscious and subconscious are just kind of being unboxed, and you have to face whatever pace that's being unboxed at. You don't have control. Ketamine's like, it's so different. It's most of it I haven't been able to articulate using language. But to your point, it's like you take those knowings that you don't need or probably can't even communicate with human language, oral language, but and you take it with you. And so I love what you said about how that you felt you could better articulate the other psychedelic experiences. I would agree with that, for me too. And then I think with like the benefits, I think of how this interestingly kind of connects with the NAD stuff is like, well, what are us humans seeking? And it's like, to feel better, to age healthier, to have more energy, to be able to create, like all these things that are, commonly discussed. And what we've talked about is like, even on a microdose with the psilocybin, that bubble, right? Some of the common things that most people in the world are suffering from is anxiety and depression. And I think there are words to label chronic states of being that are undesirable. And the psilocybin and a micro, like that bubble we've talked about, it helps soften all that, where you're just more present, you're more you're more clear, you're more direct, you're more, all these good things that people are always trying to get to. And I feel that's where the NAD plus comes in, because it's like, then my mind's clear, my sleep's better, my physical energy's there. I can hit, I told you I'm breaking PRs in the gym, but it's a different kind of bubble. It's like this confidence, especially with what I've been through physically and all the fatigue and all the horrible suffering I've been through as a human facing physical disease and challenge, is to have that confidence at 39 that I felt when I was a teenager of I wake up, my NAD levels are now close to where they were probably. I haven't tested, but from what I know, they're getting close to where they were when I was a teen. And even right now, as I have the NAD Plus patch on, I'm so dialed in where it's like, if I need to do something, I know I have the energy to do it. And I have been deprived of that confidence for 15 to 20 years. And that in itself is mind-blowing. So it's like a physical bubble of, I'm ready. I'm not jittery. I'm not stressed. I'm not jacked. I'm not crashing. I'm not having a hard time sleeping. It's none of that. It's just, I'm ready for what life is going to throw at me. And I'm ready for what I want to create and show up for. And that's so amazing. Yeah. And even the NAD, how it affects me mentally and emotionally has been very interesting. It's like the thoughts of my mind that would maybe have a little fear or a little doubt or a little, all the thousands of things the mind does, that's just not there. And that's been wildly interesting. It's like from a subconscious level, my body is having this coenzyme for energy production, and my mind's already like, oh, we feel that, we're good. And that emotionally and mentally connected to the bubble that the microdoses bring, it's a really interesting convergence there. So the last week of my life with this has been very, very delightful.
This is incredible. There's a few things you said there that I want to focus on, get you to expound on a little bit more. So first, I think it's incredibly noteworthy to point out, and I know you've talked about this in the podcast, but just for listeners, like having a diagnosis of leukemia, like for a lot of years at this point,
like 13.
Your expression of having the feeling that you are physically able to do something if needed, whatever comes up. I don't think most people who haven't experienced a physical illness or just something that is, they were born with health-wise or whatever, can necessarily understand what it actually feels like to not be physically able to do something.
I really appreciate you saying that.
I'm not saying I'm tired. It's not like
It's beyond that.
You didn't have the energy to start with. It wasn't like you did this long day of work and you're like, now I don't know if I have the energy to do this next thing.
Yeah.
You didn't have the energy. Like, at no point of that day, like, where you're like, I've got the energy to do what I need to do. It's just not there. And so, like, the stark difference of... And that's something that isn't visible to people outside of, our inner circle. And often even then, can't see it. Because physically, you look very healthy, You show up in a very healthy way.
Yeah,
it's really hard to imagine that person that we're seeing doesn't have that reserve, doesn't have extra. There's not additional thing they can grab to. So it's that's a very powerful thing that you're saying, like that shift.
I love that you said that, man. I feel very seen right now.
Yeah. I think having experienced that at times in my life, I became aware of how I hadn't seen that other people and how I often miss that piece and how easy it is for someone who hasn't experienced to overlook that. And I'm okay with that. I don't want people to have to experience this to understand.
I don't want you to have genuine empathy.
Right. But at the same time, that shift is incredibly meaningful and empowering in your life. And it's provided you with the consistency of that, though it's been short, this week or so, but that you literally haven't experienced in over a decade in a similar way. Like that's wild.
It is.
And really exciting. And I'm really interested to see where this continues to go.
Yeah.
Secondarily, I think it's fascinating how that's coupled, because this is something I wanted to talk about when you were done talking about the ketamine piece, how that's been coupled with a quieting almost of that monkey brain or that negative aspect of our mentality that just says shit. It's not us, but just says shit. Doubts things, can't do things, questions who we are, how we say things, whatever it is. And that's something no human is in my experience of talking to humans, like no one's absent that. Um, and I thought that was something that was really singular about my experience with ketamine, was that it was this amazing place that was still connected to who I am. Like I still felt like, which is dissimilar from some of my higher doses at psilocybin. Like I was still connected to, I knew who I was, my ego, like those things. But I didn't have the baggage of like the doubt. I didn't have that, that monkey brain piece that's just screaming at you, or all the different voices. And I thought that was something that really separated it from other um, more spiritually connecting substances and stuff I've tried with. Like there's a real singularity in
Yeah.
the quieting of that doubt, that distrust, that questioning. But you're still connected to a space of this reality. You still know what's happening in your life because psilocybin and some other things take you so far out there that it's not. You don't have any of those. You're having all kinds of thoughts, but none of them are inherently in the experience anyway connected to your actual life.
Yeah, it's like it's so yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So abstract.
Yeah, wow. Yeah.
You know, and I've had an immense amount of negative thoughts on psilocybin too. I've had
Yep.
some of the more crushing negative thoughts like
Yep.
I wouldn't have even been able to imagine before I've had on psilocybin, which is why I hold it very carefully
Yes.
and how we speak about it. Like it is an amazing tool. And just it's a heavyweight. It really is. Like I appreciate that people can have fun with it, and I've had very enjoyable times on it too. But it's really not something I would suggest people just play around with because it can
No.
get incredibly dark, incredibly quick.
Yes.
And so I've just with this NDA plus, I'm really interested in that piece and the correlation and conjunction with just where you are in life that has also lessened that doubt. I'm really interested to talk in the month at this because
Yeah.
there's aspects of what you're saying that just like that sounds incredible. Like that sounds kind of miracle druggy in a way. But I don't want to detract from the habits and the regularity and consistency with which you show up in the rest of your life outside of that. Like it's not, you're not just hanging out seeing what's going to happen in your life. You happen to start taking this and everything feels great. Like
Yeah.
you are consistently working out. You've got something in your hand right now.
I'm literally
You're-
working out my
you're working
forearms
your
right
wrist,
now.
like, as we talk, you are working out. You care about what
That's
you
funny.
eat, how you show
That's
up,
funny.
when you go to bed, when you wake up.
Yeah.
You're consistently adding to your mind. Like there's just a lot of things that are happening as well. So
Yeah.
this, it isn't just this NDA plus in isolation. Like there are other things happening there.
Yeah.
However, the noticeable shift that you've experienced, even in this state of having done all this stuff, is notable, and I'm really interested. Possibly most curious about the mental emotional side, which I think is on the lower side of what this is doing, but that's profound. As far as like what it's used for, like that wouldn't be why somebody takes it necessarily, but that's amazing.
Yeah, I love so much of what you said, and I feel so seen. It's really cool. And there's one thing that hit me to like add an extra layer of maybe understanding or perspective on this is like, you ever heard of people talk about when you're at like a dinner with people that you look up to, or successful people or wealthy people, or however you determine or define success, and someone's excited to be in a group that has attained that, and people have talked about like that phrase. Oh no, I'm not able to say it exactly, but it's like act as if you belong in the room, something like that. Like, don't be the nerdy starstruck, like, oh my God. It's like, act as if you belong in the room. And that can be like a fake it till you make it, which I really don't like that phrase. because it sounds inauthentic. It sounds negative to me, but it's like there's a way you can model the behavior and like try to do it that way until you eventually feel comfortable. And then there's just the people that they just know they belong and they are comfortable. And there isn't a doubt in the mind. I mean, you're human, maybe there is above 0%, but it's so minuscule. I know I belong here. I know I've achieved this. I know I worked for it. I know the language. I know the thoughts. I know the habits, the routines, the data. I know the details of whether it's a real estate deal or healthy people or working out of the gym or whatever it is. But like, I know I belong there. And for me, there's a level of this which I think can benefit so many humans of the NAD plus with energy of life and showing up to a caliber of discipline and success, which I define as being able to show up in the world and serve in all the arenas that I want to the best of my ability and be healthy and like secure in my process of doing that. And this gives a level of like, it's not, here's how I can simplify this. There's a lot of words. I'm trying to get to the core here, and maybe this will help simplify it. So all the things I've done, whether it's clients, friends, family, you, people that know how much I've evolved in my life, and whether it's mouth taping or meditation or cold plunges or hydration or seeing my naturopath and dialing in my supplements and my food and gym and hormones and chemo pills and all these things. And then now I add in NAD plus, all the other things. It's like on my journey, it's like I'm here and it's like, cool, I don't know if I belong in the room yet. It's new. It's not ingrained in my subconscious yet. It's exciting. And so I may employ different tactics or behaviors of like, yeah, like don't get too excited, man. Like, you haven't had this for years, but don't get too excited. Something about the NAD plus of like, it's so interesting physically, mentally, and emotionally. When I'm on it, it's like the level that I want to play at life that I have barely ever been able to play with consistency over the last 15, 20 years due to my energy. It's like I'm in the room, I belong in the room, and it didn't take me months or years to feel that I belonged in the room through and through. And that's what I'm trying to say right there is there's something profound in that, the speed at which that happened. And that I know scientifically there's, because the patches I take are kind of pricey. And so it's like, okay, well, you could be all kinds of conversation. Well, how much is it? Well, how, and it's a synthetic and you shouldn't, and why can I get it? What happened to a patch? And what if I couldn't do that? No, there's a supplement you can take every day with consistency at an appropriate dose based on age, gender, weight, whatever it is, called NMN, which is a precursor, and I'm shifting towards that. And you can take that every day in the morning and experience some form of this from what I've been told. I haven't done that yet, but like my point is if this is sustainable, which I know people that have been taking this for years, so I believe it is, and I even shift to a supplement that I take every day that's widely accessible, cool. So I quickly feel like I belong in the room of men that I look up to, women that I look up to, successful people, leaders, entrepreneurs, visionaries, leaders in industries, people that inspire me. And I'm like, how do they do what they do? Like, ignore the people that say the anomaly, I sleep 3 to 5 hours. And I don't want that. I don't care about, there's like The Rock, there's other people. I'm like, what? Like, that's not for me. But like to the 90-something percent, 99 point something percent of people that need 8 hours of sleep. And it's like, how do you still do, we all have 24 hours in a day. Like I've thought that a lot. I've had clients talk to me a lot about that. This principle of we all have the same amount of hours in a day. How did they achieve all that? And to me, it gets back to discipline. But if you don't have energy, disciplines can be brutal. And I've been in that realm for years. Forced myself through tears many days. I know the value and how good I feel when I'm disciplined. But having such little energy, it's been pulling teeth so many days, weeks, and months of my life. And I'm like, if this is one part extra piece of the puzzle, it gives me that I belong here, I am here, I now have energy in my 16 hours roughly of being awake while I'm alive each day to make just wring every drop of life I can according to my value system. Yes, sign me up. And and with everything you said, my habits, my discipline, my routine, all that stuff, and then adding this in, I have never in my life felt this clear, this strong, in all the layers of being a human, mentally, emotionally, spiritual, and stuff. I've never experienced this with my wisdom, my habits, and it's like, whoa. So, so bringing it back, I love what you said. I feel so seen because you honored a part of my hell that I've been through that most people I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. And people don't know. And I even have someone that's going through physical challenges deeply in my life that has known me for years. And she said, I think I finally understand what you've been talking about for years with fatigue, brain fog, and the most people don't know this. Like with a chronic illness or a disease or something, there's a reason why there's a statistically significant correlation of depression, anxiety, all these crappy things, or even suicide rates go up with a lot of that stuff too. People don't understand, like if you haven't ever experienced that chronic weight, like a ton just fucking pulling you down every day you wake up, it is so hard to articulate. It is so brutal that even someone who's seen me and knows me for years said to me in the last week or two, I think I finally understand, because they've seen me at my lowest, where the times where I couldn't get out of bed barely for 1 or 2 months at a time. And they're like, I finally understand, I think, what you were saying. And I thought I knew, and I had no fucking clue. And, it's bittersweet for me because I'm like, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, but I feel seen and cool, but let me see how I can help you so you you can make the most out of what you're going through. And I felt seen when you said that, because you're right. Most people have no clue if they haven't been through it. And I don't want you to go through it, but then having experienced that and then coming up to where I feel I have more energy than most people I know that are healthy. Because I think a lot of people that are healthy really aren't healthy, but they're average. And especially in our culture, is very unhealthy. Obese, all that crap. Diabetes. Our diets are horrible. Government allows things in our food that most countries don't. It's horrible. So, anyways, I love what you said. I think it's very powerful, and I'm just so excited, man.
I'm really interested in talking about the impact of release work on this too. As far as having the capacity to, like, I realize so many things have happened that have been really, really neat, especially in this last year, in your physical evolution.
Yep.
But when referencing back to like just the negative thoughts coming up, because this is still one of the things that's so interesting to me, that you're currently witnessing in the NDAG plus, is just kind of the absence of that. And when you talk about the correlation of some really heavy mental diagnosis disease things, as far as depression or heavy anxiety, the sadness and things that can get caught up in those stories, and how often those are correlated with and piggyback on top of physical illness, and lack of energy and other things that can sap us, whether that be temporary or lifetime, or something that just is our experience in this life. I feel like the release work that this is something Dustan and I are both so blessed to get to facilitate with people and help them navigate things like depression and anxiety, and in such a powerful way, with different release techniques, to actually get freedom from some of those thought loops and some of those habits in a way that I've never really experienced. It's not that they still don't pop up. It's just you're no longer attached to that. You don't have that as, it's not part of your identity. You don't see yourself as like, a depressed or an anxious person anymore after going through release work. So I'm curious, just initially, at thinking about how, having done so much release work in your life, how much that's facilitated easing some of those ties, in that as you are progressively getting healthier, you are able to take something like this that actually you're not even experiencing some of those thought loops and stuff anymore. I'm interested in like kind of that connection, because I don't know, because you're not who you were 2 years ago taking this. You're who you are now, taking this. So like that baggage isn't there anymore. But I wonder, just speculatively, how much that's influenced the mental and emotional freedom in conjunction with the physical, energy boost, connection, uh, oneness that you're kind of feeling.
Dude, that's a really, really good point. So when I chunk up, the things that come to my mind immediately are like, what are the main things that have impacted me? And it's unconscious/subconscious release work, unconscious/subconscious programming or putting in the stuff we want, and then which is one of our requisites for the breakthroughs that we do,
Yeah.
is the action needs to be taken. Hence why you work all in the subconscious of, limiting things that aren't working, shifting things, adding things that will, because that's where the programming comes from that makes the actions way easier, way more difficult. Values, we're, just talking about that. And so you have those two, and then it gets to the action, which is all about change your state. Tony Robbins talks so much about that. Change your state, change your story, change your life. State, 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 state. Blood work to check hormones, so I know what my state is. Cold plunge, change my state, adjust my hormones. Working out, change my state. Chemically, hormonally, like all that stuff. And so NAD plus, change my state. Coffee, etc. Subconscious mind, what's your state? You can control very quickly how we adjust our state, but then we know most people where it's like, well, yeah, I'm doing all this, but I still have all this crap. Cool. Let's address the subconscious and unconscious minds. Well, that's what I would attest to my answer to your question, is like, those are the things. And they stack. And it's like, if I just try to control my state and look outward and take a substance or a pill or this, and I'm not doing that with discipline, and that ties into my habits as well, because my habits will be addressing both, right? There's a lot of habits that overlap on each other, breathwork being one of them, meditation being one of them. So, right, addressing both. If I overnourish one, or I'm only doing release work, but I don't have any actions or habits, like, it is a symbiotic relationship. So you bring up a really good point. And if you're only doing one, it's like building a house on sand. So you bring up a great point. It's that consistency and mirroring, and the discipline of nourishing both, honoring both. Like, what am I eating? What are my supplements? How am I changing my state? What are my hormone levels? How am I constantly having responsibility and discipline to be responsible for my state? I have 100% control over that every day. How do I do that when I wake up? How am I doing that when I go to bed? How does that honor my sleep, my energy, everything? And then what's my discipline on my release work? Like, what's my discipline on the habits that are honoring that part of me? You have to do both. And that's what you and I both do. Like, we really embody that, and we live that, and we teach that. And you can't have one without the other. I think doing one helps the other. And that's that piggyback. It's almost like stairs to me. And every other step is one of these things. And if you miss one, you're trying to then jump a step. That's where you fall down more easily. You get injured, literally or figuratively. Like, it's just like, okay, cool, boom. And that's where all the greats, all the motivational speakers, they talk about discipline. They all talk about these things. And it comes down to one day at a time. Every big dream or goal that's so difficult or like unimaginable, they all can be broken down into attainable, easy steps. And that's the SMART goal stuff we also incorporate into breakthroughs. And that's a corporate thing. It's proven to be effective for humans to get the small wins. But to a point we discussed earlier before the podcast, right? If I'm like, and I've worked with clients a lot on this principle, is I want something. Right now, I don't have the habits. I don't have the things that change my state to make that easy or consistent. And I have a bunch of baggage and I haven't done release work. Cool. Most of us aren't taught to even know what the heck that is or how to work with it. But I want this thing. I want this job. I want this partner. I want this house. I want this, etc. And there's a gap there. So we can do release work to like remove the baggage that weighs someone's down so they can get closer and bridge that gap. You create the state changing habits, the action items, the little disciplines that start to create that gap, because you're not going to jump there. If anyone does, it usually doesn't last and they fall. The lottery is an example. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, okay, well, how do I bridge that gap? And one thing is values. Is if we're like, I want that, I've done release work, I don't know if there's baggage there. I have some habits, but like I'm like, ugh. And that's usually because I want something, maybe because someone said it or I know it's good, but I don't really want it. And that's because my value system is not supporting that. And we can work with that. And so subconsciously, what's the ranking of your values, your top 5 being the most effective? But we typically work with 10. But you can elicit 20 on a certain area of life or life in general. And so I think your question's brilliant because it's honoring the whole spectrum without a quick fix or without deceiving people to think this thing is going to be a panacea, which nothing is, and common challenges on the journey of evolution, because I think evolution is the purpose of why as humans are here. We need to serve other people, and we evolve and we grow, and that's why pain is so useful too. It's all there for us. We're meant to create and grow and share.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, so I think that's a brilliant question. I want to know what you think about it.
Oh, I loved your answer, and I think that's where I was going, what I was interested in, and my question around that stacking nature and the reality of, maybe I won't say reality, but it's a great metaphor or analogy for life as like a puzzle, and that we're just trying to fit all these pieces together. And our puzzle kind of feels like something we're building through life, like it's this linear. Life is not linear, but this puzzle feels like it is often, and it's like we're just building a row at a time, and I feel it's so easy and very human to be looking for that silver bullet, like that missing puzzle piece that just fills everything in.
Yeah.
One of the ways we get in trouble there is we keep looking at other people's puzzle for like what was their magic piece, what was their missing piece, and it's like, what's the magic bullet for somebody else? Most likely is never going to be that for you, because you've got a different puzzle. Like you're missing different pieces, and missing is really the wrong word too. You haven't identified or seen or put those pieces in the right place yet. I don't think for a second any of us aren't whole or aren't capable of experiencing the fullness and the beauty of what life is. It's understanding how to do that, or having those baggages or barriers, things that we help people release with that are getting in the way of that. But back to my point, I think so often we're looking at like, oh, somebody else found that missing piece, I want that piece. It's like, that fucking piece doesn't fit in your puzzle. Yeah. Maybe it helps a little bit.
It might.
Maybe it might help a little bit, but it's probably not going to do for you what it did for them, because it's a different piece in your puzzle.
Well, and we often miss all the stuff they do behind the scenes.
Absolutely, we miss that.
Especially in social media, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The process. We miss the process behind that puzzle piece.
There's no quick fix.
There's just not. And so I think that's really neat and really amazing to talk about. It's just kind of how cohesive and how much of a journey this always is.
Yeah.
And the reality of you feeling this way, you still have to show up. You still have to wake up and do the things every day. You feel more able to do those things you've ever been. But it doesn't change the doing of the thing. It doesn't change still having to show up for your life. Still having to have dreams and navigate, which directions you want to choose in relationships, and navigating, how much we get paid to do what we do. I mean, just all these different things. It's like that doesn't take away from that, but you have such a more supportive, more congruent platform with which to engage in life from now, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And in a way, I mean, I would suggest, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm interested. I guess this is more of a question. Like, did you ever think you would feel as good mentally, emotionally, and physically as you do right now? Like, did this even feel plausible? Because I have known each other for a few years now, but even just in the last year, like, there's a massive difference. And there's a piece of me that's just like, man, I don't even know if this was on the horizon for you, like where you currently are at a point not that far ago.
Dude, you're on fire today with brilliant questions. Thank you. This is exciting. And it may not be the answer that might be expected by someone listening. Actually surprised me when I internally came up with the answer.
Yeah.
So the short answer would be subconsciously and unconsciously, hell no. On a soul level, which this might be a little confusing, as some might call the subconscious the soul, but I want to just separate that for anyone listening. Try to simplify it. I've had not even a dream, it's like a knowing, like a vision, a feeling, an intuition, a gut, a something, like a whisper of this vision I had for my life. And with what I've gone through for the last, 15 years to 20, because I was living a very unhealthy lifestyle before I was diagnosed 13 years ago. So I kind of tacked that on, because that was a very poor behavior based on a lot of baggage and things, where the substances I was taking, the lifestyle I was leading, the excessive drinking, all that stuff, sleep was horrible. My state was pretty crappy. Mm-hmm. And then now you add on the diagnosis and all these things, and I've been increasing my lifestyle and my responsibility and my health, but it's been a brutal journey. So I'm saying that because it's a brilliant question. And a part of me was like, no, because I didn't think it was possible. But something within me that I would either call me as a soul or a whisper from source or something else was always there. That's why when I first watched Tony Robbins' documentary, when it came up 8 years ago, whatever, I just started bawling. I bawled because it woke up something. It spoke to that thing, that whisper inside of me. And so I've had this dream, I've had this vision, I've had this belief that defies what I've been experiencing for a long time. And so to your question, that whisper in me is like, oh yeah. But my human side, my ego, my baggage, my years of life experience are like, no. This was imagining me, just, it was so far-fetched. But I think this is really why I think this is such a great question, is I think my answer to so many humans right now and your question is so useful, because I believe it ties to something that is part of the magic of life, the mystery, something that's hidden, that is within all of us, that we are all born with. And I think that's why all the greats, whether it's a speaker, whatever it is, someone who's just the best at whatever they're doing, they often talk about this. And I think it's not well understood, and it's so rarely experienced that I think it just kind of gets pushed under the rug. You don't even know it's there. Is the dream, the vision, the belief, that gut instinct. Like all the greats I've listened to, they're like, what's your secret sauce? They're like, it's hard work, but I'm intuitive. I listen to my gut. I listen to that whisper in me, that thing that I can't fully understand. Call it God, call it me as a soul, whatever, I don't know, mystical parts of life. It's like that little thing. And I love that's what, I talked about this in a recent podcast, Denzel Washington, famous quote. He says, that whisper within you is God's proof to you that it's yours to take because it was given to you and it wasn't given to someone else. They have a different whisper. And so that's would be my answer. I feel like I'm embodying something that knew was there but seemed outlandish or almost pathetically, sadly, depressingly, hilariously impossible. But a part of me still knew it was. So it's not a clear answer.
It's not a simple answer, but I think like that's
Maybe it is
very
clear, but
congruent
not
with like
simple.
how I've understood life. And I think it's a very not I think, I know it's been a very meaningful part of my journey and transition, the reality of what you just answered.
Mm,
That as you were talking about, like so many of the greats speak of this, listening to your unconscious or your gut, your intuition.
yeah.
Um, but this idea of this desire, this dream, is inside of us, super deep, super small, and then progressing and allowing that to become a reality. And I think one of the teachers I've connected with most that's helped me with this idea, um, has been Esther, Abraham Hicks, and just kind of around this idea of the law of attraction. And then if we have a desire, something she would state, and I'm paraphrasing for sure, but like if we have a desire that comes up inside of us, like the universe has already responded and answered that. Like from the moment it happens, from the moment it's a whisper. And I love back to that, she would emphasize this too, as you'd said, like that whisper's unique to us. Like we don't all get the same whispers. We all get them because there are great things that are possible within this lifetime. There are great things that we can connect with, experience, and achieve in this life if we show up for it and choose that and allow for this. And her statement would be like, most of us are amazing at calling in those desires or creating those, and the universe answers. What we're not good is allowing that into our life. We don't have the belief structure within, like as you just first answered that question, like physically, like all this consciousness would have said no, but there was something deep inside of me that
Yes.
believed that. And that thing deep inside of you was always true. And that other
Yeah.
part of you is changing and progressing along this journey and allowing that to peek out, to come forth.
Catching up to it almost.
Absolutely. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's a really neat way to think about it. Um, and
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
I've got goosebumps right now just thinking about what a neat example, what you're experiencing right now is, uh, for me and everyone who hears this and everyone in your life of their own deep thing, whatever their desire is that they feel disconnected from, that they feel that they can't achieve, that they feel is
Mm,
ludicrous based on the feedback they've received in their normal life,
yeah.
of being bent over, broken down, like whatever that is, just beat down from life. Um, the the steps I think that we take in our journey is so much of those habits that we build in reality are just like peeling back of those barriers in between, uh, what we're consciously experiencing and the true wonder of our reality, which we first encounter in these tiny quiet whispers that we don't tell anyone about because they're so ludicrous, because we could never imagine being the person that experiences that thing.
Yeah.
We already are that person. And
Yeah.
it's just like this life is, and I think that's the beautiful thing about discipline, and that's what it's speaking to, the discipline of like believing in yourself, the discipline of, as we find those things that hold us back and those layers that don't correlate with that dream, peeling those away, peeling those away. And that's just stunning, man. It's really beautiful to see, in your life, and to be a witness, uh, to this transformation, and know that that's also possible in my life and the lives of those we connect with and serve. This is really empowering. I know we're
Yeah.
probably
I
wrapping
feel
up, but
wonderful.
this
Yeah.
was this was amazing.
Woo. God. Yeah. I feel so seen. I feel so inspired. I feel very empowered right now. I feel like this episode in itself is an example of what we're talking about for me.
Mm.
Just this right now that we're even talking about this
Mm.
is an example in itself in real time to fulfill and exemplify what we're even talking about, which is pretty cool.
Mm.
And I want to say one last thing is that
Yeah.
I feel you are also an example of this.
Hmm.
And I would love, we can talk later, but I would love to explore more and ask you questions about your journey, because I feel in principle you've been through a very similar evolution in discipline, growth. You've been through different kinds of hell, and you are not the man you were a year ago. From what I've seen 2 years ago, from what you've told me, definitely far, far beyond, or I guess not beyond, but opened up to who you were from the start than you were many years ago. And so I think we're both living this way, and I'd like to honor that. If it resonates, we can talk about it later. But I wanted to bring that up because you inspire me in a very similar way.
Appreciate that.
I think that's part of why the universe brought us together, one of many. But this was amazing. I feel just so seen, so thank you. I feel great right now.
This was neat, man.
Yeah.
Again, thank you for the time. Thank you for all who listened, and I'm really excited to see what you learned. But more than anything, I'm just excited for you to listen to that deep voice inside that still knows exactly what you desire and what's possible.
Yeah.
And I would say, in some way, if you don't know what that thing is, ask yourself what you desire most and believe least about yourself. Because in my experience, those two ideas have been very related.
I
I think a lot of our deepest potential is hidden behind our most apparent struggles, our most apparent faults, and this is gorgeous. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Until next time.
Till next time.